Let's talk about something really strange about our modern world. We are, quite literally, drowning in information. You've got access to every course, every book, every tutorial ever made, and yet, somehow, a lot of us feel more incompetent than ever. So, let's get into it.
I mean, does this feel familiar to you? You're always busy, right? Your calendar is jammed, you're constantly moving, but when you get to the end of the day, you just feel like you haven't actually gone anywhere. You're completely exhausted, but those big goals? Yeah, they feel just as far away as they did yesterday.
Well, here's the thing. That frustration you're feeling, it comes from a huge lie that our society pushes on us, that the grind, just raw effort, is the only way to succeed. But what if that's totally wrong? What if the shape of your work, the geometry, is way more important than how many hours you just throw at it?
So, let's start by digging into that idea. First up, our culture's obsession with just being busy. I mean, think about your typical day. So many of us, we just dive headfirst into this ocean of low-value stuff. Clearing out our inbox, sitting in meetings that really could have just been an email. You know the drill. We feel productive because we're always doing something, but a lot of the time, it's just an illusion. It's movement, not progress. So what is the root cause here? Why does all this frantic activity lead to, well, so little? Let's try to diagnose the actual problem.
We can actually give it a name. Let's call it the busyness virus. It's this deep-down belief that if we just put in more hours, more hustle, we'll automatically get better results. But look, your life is a complex system, and in any complex system, the effort you put in and the results you get out are almost never a one-to-one match.
And this chart, wow, this just nails it, doesn't it? This is the classic 80-20 rule playing out in real life. It's very likely you are spending a whopping 80% of your precious energy on things that are only giving you 20% of your results, and that leaves you completely drained for the work that actually moves the needle.
Okay, so if grinding harder isn't the answer, then learning more must be, right? Just consume more information. Well, not so fast. Let's look at why just piling on more knowledge can actually make everything feel worse. Just think about it. You basically have an infinite supply of building materials. Every book, every course, every single tutorial is right there at your fingertips. You have all the bricks you could possibly need to build something incredible. But here it is. This is the crucial missing piece. You have the bricks, but you don't have a blueprint. You don't have what we could call a learning architecture. You see, you're not failing because you aren't smart enough. No way. You're failing because you don't have a system for putting all this knowledge together into something that works.
And that's why this happens. You start learning a new language, or you kick off a coding project, or you map out a new business plan, and 3 weeks later, you've quit. That mountain of knowledge just feels too overwhelming to climb because you're just stacking random bricks on top of each other. Of course the whole thing is going to collapse.
This horrible feeling, it actually has a name: cognitive drowning. It's that state where your amazing, high-bandwidth brain is literally being suffocated by the same information that was supposed to empower you. It leaves you with a massive library in your head, but no tools to actually build anything with it. So how in the world do we escape this trap? We need a totally new way of thinking. It's time to stop being a grinder and start becoming an architect. First things first, we have to admit there's a huge error in our thinking. We've been sold this idea that mastery comes from just putting in the time, that famous 10,000-hour rule. But time is a terrible way to measure growth. This belief that more study automatically means more skill is a massive flaw in how we approach learning.
This slide really lays it all out. On one side, you have the grinder. They're a passive consumer. They just collect random bits of data, and this is the killer mistake. They treat every piece of info as if it's equally important. But the architect? They're a designer. They focus on the blueprint, on building a system. They hunt for the key principles, and they measure real progress, not just hours clocked. Until you make that shift, you're going to stay stuck as a perpetual beginner.
All right, let's make this super practical. How do you actually apply this architect mindset and find your leverage point? How do you escape all the noise?
Just remember this number, 80%. A staggering 80% of what you are doing right now is probably just noise. It's friction. It's not busyness that feels productive, but is actually just drowning out your real potential.
So the whole point is this. Your goal is to stop being a slave to that 80%. It is not about working harder on everything. It's about finding, with laser precision, your systemic advantage, that tiny, critical 20% of activities that will rocket you towards 80% of the results you want.
And that leaves us with one final, powerful question to ask yourself. Look at everything on your plate, all the noise, all the tasks. What is the one thing you could focus on that would make everything else either easier or completely irrelevant? That's your leverage point. That's your blueprint.
Have you ever had that feeling? You know the one. You're putting in the hours, you're grinding away, but you feel like you're stuck in the mud, like you're on a hamster wheel. You're definitely busy, but you're not actually being productive. Well, if that sounds even a little bit familiar,
You know, we're always told that the key to getting really good at something is just to study harder, right? To put in more hours. But what if that's not just inefficient? What if it's completely wrong? What if the path to a truly unordinary mind isn't about adding more, but about finding the elegant simplicity inside all that complexity? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're deconstructing the architecture of real expertise.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're going to diagnose a problem that I bet a lot of you are familiar with, the busyness virus. Then, we'll look at the difference between the grind and something I call geometry. After that, we'll introduce a powerful new way of thinking, the architect's mindset, and give you the actual tools for deconstructing mastery. And finally, we'll put it all together so you can start architecting your own expertise.
All right, let's dive right in. First up, diagnosing a modern epidemic, the busyness virus, and the tricky illusion of progress that it creates.
So I want you to think about this for a second and be really honest with yourself. Are you busy or are you productive? Just think about your last week. The answer to that simple question, well, it reveals pretty much everything.
Yeah, the truth is, a lot of us are infected with this busyness virus. And what's so sneaky about it is how it pretends to be success. It's this belief that a ton of activity, checking emails constantly, jumping from meeting to meeting, is the same thing as high achievement. We even wear our exhaustion like it's some kind of badge of honor, don't we? But what does that feel like in reality? Well, it feels a lot like this. A hamster wheel. You're running as fast as you possibly can, putting in all this effort, but you're not actually going anywhere. It's just motion without any real direction.
Okay, so this leads us right to the heart of the problem, this big battle between what we'll call grind versus geometry. And it really gets at why just putting in more effort is almost never the answer.
Check this out, because this visualizes the problem perfectly. I'm sure you've heard of the 80-20 principle, right? The Pareto principle? Well, this is it in action. It means you're probably spending a whopping 80% of your energy to get just 20% of your results. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. Most of your hard work is being wasted on stuff that barely moves the needle. And here's the two mindsets side by side. On one hand, you've got the grind. This is what society sells us, right? It values just being active. All tasks are treated as equal. But on the other side, you've got the geometry. This is all about working smarter, not harder. It's not about brute force. It's about finding that one point of maximum leverage, identifying those few key tasks that give you a massive systemic advantage, and then pouring all your energy right there.
Okay, so this is a huge mental shift. So how do we actually do it? Let's get into the solution, adopting what's called the architect's mindset. This is the paradigm shift we've been looking for.
The secret? The antidote to that busyness virus is something called meta-learning. And it's as simple as it is powerful. It's the skill of learning how to learn. It's about stepping back and becoming the architect of your own mind. So instead of just trying to cram more and more information into your brain, you take a moment, you look at the blueprint, you figure out the underlying structure of the thing you want to learn first. And this gets us to the foundational principle of being an architect of your own mind. It's this simple. In the architecture of the unordinary mind, we don't study, we deconstruct. You stop looking at a new skill as this giant, intimidating monolith. Instead, you start actively breaking it down into its fundamental building blocks.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? Let's get into the toolkit. This is all about deconstructing mastery, and this is your new framework for learning things fast. All right, the very first tool in your new kit is a concept called the minimum effective dose, or MED. Think of it like medicine. You don't take the whole bottle, you take the smallest dose that gets the job done. The question you should always be asking is, what is the smallest amount of effort I can put in to get the biggest possible result? It's about being a surgeon, not a demolition crew. Precision over brute force.
And how do we find that MED? We hunt for what are called lead dominoes. See, you don't start at the beginning of the textbook. You start at the center of the skill. Your job is to find those one, maybe two, core principles that act as the lead dominoes. Because once you understand those and you give them a push, you'll be amazed how everything else just falls into place almost automatically.
Let's make this super practical. Okay, learning a language. The traditional way is to grind through all these complex grammar rules, right? The lead domino way, just learn the 500 most common words. That's it. Because those 500 words make up something like 80% of all daily conversation. Or how about business? Forget studying the entire history of an industry. Instead, just master the core feedback loops of how value is created and delivered. See, in every single skill, there's a critical point of leverage. Your only job is to find it.
So once you've found those lead dominoes, you don't just try to memorize them, no. You create what are called relational hooks. This is where you actively connect this new piece of information to stuff you already know. You're literally weaving it into the operating system of your mind, your neural OS. And when you do that, it makes forgetting, well, it makes it almost impossible.
Okay, let's bring this all home. In our final section, we're going to look at the end result of all this. It's time to talk about architecting your expertise. This is the final transformation.
This right here shows the fundamental shift in your identity. Look at the old way on the left. You're just a passive consumer of information, collecting data. The focus is on how much you can cram in. And honestly, it feels like studying, like a chore. But look at the new way on the right. Now you're an active organizer of knowledge. You're not a collector, you're a builder. The focus shifts from how much to how effective, and that feels like building something. It feels powerful. And really, if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Mastery is not about how much you put in. It's not about the hours you grind away. It is all about how effectively you organize what is already there.
And this is where the real magic happens. Your mind literally becomes a pattern weaver. Because when you stop seeing a skill as this big, tangled mess, and you instead learn to see its elegant underlying structure, all that complexity just vanishes. And you can start weaving new capabilities right into your own mental hardware, with the speed and the precision of a master engineer.
So I want to leave you with a question to think about. Just as you go about your week, ask yourself this. What is the lead domino in my life right now? What is that one thing that, if I really, truly mastered it, would make everything else easier, or maybe even unnecessary? Find that domino, and you found your path.
All right, let's talk about something that I think is a total game changer. We're going to move beyond just, studying for something and into the world of real, genuine mastery. We're going to break down a protocol that can help you learn pretty much anything faster by, rewiring the way you even think about learning. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you something, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. Are you busy or are you productive? I mean, really think about it, because we mix those two up all the time, but they are worlds apart. One is just frantic motion. The other is deliberate forward progress. Which one really describes your day?
And you know what? This is where it all goes wrong. Our whole society seems to celebrate the grind. We look at someone with a crazy, packed schedule and we think, wow, that person must be successful. We fill our days with endless emails and meetings that go nowhere, telling ourselves that if we just work harder, we'll eventually get ahead. But what if that's just a complete lie?
We're going to give this thing a name. The busyness virus. It's this deep-seated belief that just putting in more hours and more effort on, frankly, low-value stuff will somehow magically lead to success. It's the illusion of progress. It's that feeling of moving really, really fast without actually going anywhere.
This is such a perfect way to put it, isn't it? A hamster wheel, because that's exactly how it feels. You're running, you're putting in all the work, you're exhausted by the end of the day, but your view never ever changes. You're just stuck in this loop where the amount of effort you put in just doesn't seem to create the results you want.
And this chart just lays it all out in plain sight. This is the trap. It's the 80-20 rule in action. Just look at that imbalance. It shows that in almost any complex system, your effort and your results are almost never equal. You're likely spending a staggering 80% of your precious energy on things that only get you 20% of your results.
So what does this actually mean for you? It means most of your incredible potential is just being drowned out by noise. You're fighting against the friction of a broken system. You feel productive because you're busy, but you're not actually achieving what you're truly capable of. It is absolutely time for a new way of doing things.
We have to make a shift, a big one. Society sold us this idea of the grind, but the real path to mastery isn't about brute force. It's about geometry. It's about being elegant, strategic, and intelligent with where you apply your effort. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter on the very few things that actually matter.
And that new approach, it has a name. It's the Mastery Protocol. And this, right here, is the antidote to the busyness virus. It's a systematic framework designed to help you learn any skill you want efficiently and effectively, so you can finally get off that hamster wheel for good.
So what is it? It's not some complicated theory. It's built on 4 super clear, super actionable steps. First, we're going to deconstruct. Second, we select. Third, we use a technique called active recall. And finally, fourth, we implement spaced repetition. Let's break down exactly what each of these really means.
Okay, step 1, deconstruction.
Before you can build or master anything, you have to know what it's made of, right? You have to understand its fundamental pieces. I want you to think of it like finding all the individual Lego blocks that make up some huge, complex model.
So it doesn't matter what you're trying to learn. It could be a new language, a coding framework, a musical instrument, anything. The very first thing you have to do is break that big, overwhelming skill down into its smallest possible parts. What are the core ideas, the absolute essential techniques? These are your Lego blocks.
All right, so now you've got your pile of Lego blocks all laid out in front of you. What's next? Well, that brings us to step 2, selection. This is where that geometry we talked about comes into play. You don't just try to learn everything at once.
And this part is the real game changer. You apply the 80-20 rule to those blocks. You have to ask yourself, which 20% of these concepts are going to give me 80% of the results I want? And then you have to do something that might feel a little weird at first. You ruthlessly ignore the rest. For now, anyway. It's all about identifying and focusing only on the highest impact pieces.
So, you've broken it down, you've selected the vital few things to focus on. Now, how do you actually make that information stick in your brain? That brings us to step 3, active recall. And this is where we really see the massive difference between just studying and truly mastering something. Just look at this comparison. On one side, you have the old way, the way we were all taught in school, just passively rereading our notes over and over. It kind of feels productive, but honestly, it's incredibly inefficient. The mastery way is totally different. It's about forcing your brain to pull that information out from scratch. You close the book and you try to explain the concept out loud. You try to solve the problem without looking at the answer. It's like a workout for your brain.
So why does this work so much better? It's all about what's happening inside your brain. Every single time you struggle and then successfully pull out a piece of information, you are literally strengthening and thickening the neural pathways connected to it. You're building a stronger, faster superhighway to that knowledge in your mind.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Step 4. This is the part that makes all your learning permanent. Spaced repetition. This is how you fight back against our brain's natural tendency to just forget stuff over time.
Now, this is not about cramming. In fact, it's the total opposite. It's about being smart, strategic. It's about timing your reviews perfectly. You look at that core information again at bigger and bigger intervals, right at the moment your brain is on the very edge of forgetting it. That little jolt signals to your brain, hey, this is important, keep it. And the science behind this is just incredible. This process of timed recall triggers something in your brain called myelination. It's basically like adding insulation around those neural pathways, which makes the signal travel faster and become way more permanent. This is how you literally lock a skill into your brain for the long haul.
And I love this idea. You literally have the most powerful learning machine in the entire known universe sitting on your shoulders. But most of us are still using the factory default settings. The Mastery Protocol. Think of it as your user manual. It's the software upgrade that lets you finally tap into your brain's unbelievable potential.
So at the end of the day, this is all about a choice. It's a mindset shift. It's about moving away from being a passive consumer of information, just a student of what's already known, and becoming an active builder, an architect of your own skills and your own future.
So, the big question is, are you ready? Are you ready to stop just studying and start truly mastering? If you're serious about this, then take the first step right now. Comment the word MASTER down below, and we'll send you our skill deconstruction worksheet to help you find your very first Lego block. It's time. Let's stop being students of the past and start being architects of the future.